Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be learning about how to learn. Isn't that important for us to consider? Because all through our life we can only make progress if we learn, acquire new knowledge and skills and grow ourselves. And this is the most unique and differentiating gift that human beings have over every other creation in the universe. And that is what makes us extremely powerful. But not many of us take the time to understand what it takes to be an effective learner, what it takes to make sure that whatever we come to know, we are able to store in our memory, reflect, and then recall at the most appropriate moment when we would require that piece of information, insight, knowledge, or wisdom. So let's begin. How to train your neural networks? In other words, the human brain. As you know, it has taken 13.5 billion years for the universe to evolve from the Big Bang to its present state. In this vast expanse of time, it has also taken 1 billion years approximately for the human brain to evolve, according to scientists and researchers. And the human brain has 4 key elements. First is the reptilian brain or the amygdala. Second is the middle brain, or where the memory is resting. Third is the prefrontal cortex, which is where intelligence and creativity is resting. And fourth is the parasympathetic nervous system, in other words, our spinal cord, which is the extension of our brain. But for today's study, we will be discussing about a nerve cell, what is called as a neuron. So, what does a neuron look like? Let's take a look. A neuron has a cell body which is called as the soma. It looks something like an amoeba with tentacles, and it has a nucleus. The tentacle-like structures are called as dendrites, and there is a long extension of the nerve cell or the neuron, which is called as the axon, and over the axon is a myelin sheath, a covering, if you will. And the axon terminates into distributed axon terminal buttons, and when the axon terminal buttons interact with other axon terminal buttons, those areas where the exchange of information takes place, that is called as a synapse. And this is a very important part of the entire learning process. The synapse. Why is it important? Because it serves as an exchange of chemicals from one neuron to the other and vice versa. Now, what happens in this chemical exchange? When the chemical exchange occurs, that is when we are initiating what is called as a neural transmission, a message. And learning essentially means that information has moved from one nerve cell to another nerve cell via the synapse. So that is the reason why whenever you want to learn something new, you read about a particular new topic that is unfamiliar to you, and the first time you read about it, there is an exchange of that new information from one nerve cell gets stimulated and then that stimulus is passed along from one nerve cell, one neuron, to another neuron via the synapse. Now, when you repeat that information again and again, that is, when you learn the same piece of information again and again, this passage of flow of chemical messages at the synapse between the nerve cells become faster and faster, more efficient with lesser energy each time you repeat. And that is the principal way in which the process of learning at the most fundamental level in the neural network or our brain occurs. So, isn't that interesting? And that is the reason why, even for artificial intelligence systems, the scientists and researchers have emulated the networked structure of the neurons or the brain cells in order to develop what is called as deep learning, the common terminology for convolutional neural networks, which is a type of artificial intelligence architecture to design self-learning systems, artificial intelligence systems. Whether you want to develop a automated image recognition system or a voice recognition system or a text generation system, or whatever you want to do in the field of artificial intelligence, you will be using a technique called as convolutional neural networks or deep learning technique, which is a very important technique for advancement in the world of artificial intelligence. And all of that has been inspired by human intelligence, by the construct of human intelligence designed by nature. So, this is the fundamental thing to remember and understand of how we learn or how the brain learns. Now that we have understood how the brain learns, what are the key success factors for us to be effective every time we learn? And how do we continue learning for the rest of our lives and be engaged in that learning activity in such a way that the information that we are collecting from our early childhood as we grow continues to be used by the brain to generate more and more information, knowledge, insights, and then finally wisdom. So how do we effectively learn and convert this across the data value chain, right? So in my experience and learning, there are 7 success factors that we need to keep in mind. Let's take a look. First, the principle of learning is what is called as moving from the known to the unknown. This is the fundamental principle of learning and teaching effectively. And that is the reason why we begin our kindergarten when the teacher tells us the letter A for apple, because a child knows what an apple looks like, what an apple feels like. A child can taste an apple. Therefore, we are now converting the image and the learning that the child already has in a natural way of an apple to the sound A in the child's brain. This is the principle of moving from the known to the unknown. This is the fundamental learning principle. And when do we say that someone has learnt effectively? We say that when we know the person is able to recall, apply, and reproduce the information or knowledge in the most appropriate manner at the point when it is asked of him or her and when it is required. That is when we know a person has truly learnt. Now, in the laboratory, when we do testing on animals, we say learning has occurred if there is a permanent change in behavior of, let's say, if someone's testing on a rat and they're trying to teach a rat or a monkey something new, some new tricks, then we say the rat or the monkey has learned if there has been a permanent change in behavior to a particular stimuli provided by the researcher or scientist. And for human beings, we know things only when we move from whatever we know already and then associating that as an example to extend into what we do not know. And that is how we acquire learning at the most fundamental level. So number one, always move from what you know to what you do not know. This is the number one principle. And number two, we have to mimic the human brain. The human brain is networked. It's a neural network. It's a network of millions and millions, perhaps billions of neurons, which are constantly learning, growing, learning and growing. And this learning and growing and adapting is called as neuroplasticity in the recent times. Gone are the days when researchers and scientists believe that the brain of the human beings evolved up to a particular age and then it did not go any further. Today's belief and understanding is that at any given age, a human being can choose to learn and adapt their brain with the new learning, and this is called as neuroplasticity. And that is possible because the human brain is networked. It can morph itself and create new connections. And each time it creates new connections through new synapses, it gives birth to new insights, new knowledge, and a lot of deep wisdom. And the networked architecture of the human brain makes it extremely unique and also very powerful. It is able to operate under very low energy consumption, and it requires a lot of input for it to remain active for life. However, the human brain can get overwhelmed if we present it with a lot of information in a very short period in time. And that is what is happening to the world today. We are being overwhelmed with a lot of information coming through the internet via the smartphone, and we are not allowing relevant information for the brain to process, causing all kinds of maladies. But let's stay focused on learning about how to learn. So, knowing that the neural network is a network architecture, it's important to use techniques which, like mind mapping, which is what I'm doing here. A mind mapping is nothing but you have a central idea, which is here learning to learn, and the central idea I'm demonstrating or illustrating 7 key success factors, and I'm highlighting the keywords around the central theme, and that is how I'm able to create a network effect. And at the same time, I'm pulling in information which is seemingly disjoint and giving it a certain association and network. So in social media, you can see that the success of social media is all about the network effect. So let us say you created a post, and based on that post, the people that follow you have liked and reshared, and then the people who have liked and reshared your post and commented on your post are again bringing in new members on the social network to view your post, and then so on and so forth. The network effect expands logarithmically across a social media network within a few minutes and hours and days. So similarly, the human brain is networked, and we need to understand, by using this knowledge that the brain is networked, we can create a better and more effective learning by connecting the dots, by joining the dots of whatever information that we have acquired across many things that we learn in our life. And third, which is very clearly related to network effect, is associative. Our learning, when it is stored as memory, is associative in nature because it is networked. So, for example, if you remember from your childhood your favorite memory of having ice cream, or having your favorite food, or having chocolate, or having a pleasant experience, and if that memory from your childhood needs to be recalled at an older age, or even in your very old age, it can be done so if someone presents to you anything associated with that memory. Maybe the same food, maybe the people who were with you in your childhood when you experienced that pleasant memory, or even the smell of the ice cream or chocolate or whatever delicious food you had as a child can bring back those old memories. And this is a daily experience to most of us, right? So memory is associative. So it helps to associate whatever we want to learn to something that we already know and to something that helps us to easily remember. Mnemonic is an easy way to associate. So for example, a very common mnemonic is the word team. So what does team stand for? Together, each achieves more. T-E-A-M. Similarly, you can make your own mnemonic in order to recall whatever concept you want to learn quickly and access that particular learning repeatedly over a long period of time. Fourth key success factor is we need to repeat and recall whatever is stored in our memory. It's not enough to read something once or listen to something once or watch something once. It's important to repeat so that we can make the process of learning in our brain quicker, as explained earlier. And we also need to recall in order for us to access associatively through the networked layers of our memory again and again, and make that process of accessing our memory and remembering quicker. Repeat and recall is extremely important for us to be able to use our knowledge effectively. Success factor number 5 is experimentation. Experimentation is extremely important to keep the brain active, keep the brain happy, keep the brain curious. And that is why we say it's important to remain in the childlike learning mode every day of your life, so that your curiosity leads you to experimentation, gives you the ability to ask the question why, how, when, why not, how much, whom, so on and so forth. But if you can keep the curiosity alive and keep trying new things which pushes you out of your comfort zone, that is leading to experimentation. And the brain loves experimentation as it makes new connections, as well as it begins to understand new insights from the information that is already stored in your memory. And that is when people say, I've had a eureka moment, because through experimentation they were able to join the dots and look at all the dots that was there on a particular topic in a new way, thereby creating a new perspective which did not exist prior to the experimentation process. So be sure to experiment in whatever you do. Key success factor number 6. Learning, unlearning and relearning. The continual learning cycles in our life never ceases. Whatever we learn today will no longer be relevant at a future point in time. Pace of change is becoming extremely rapid in today's internet world, and therefore it's important for us to evaluate the knowledge and information we had from the past to its relevance in the present and what would likely be in the future. Therefore, always keep learning, unlearning what you learnt. That means reflecting on what you know and considering whether it's relevant or not, and then relearning, acquiring new information to modify the old information that you have so that your perspective can become clear. The goal is to be able to see clearly and understand effectively. Listening to understand and seeing clearly without bias. And that can only happen if we are in the constant learning mode of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And the last but very important for all of this to work throughout our lifetime successfully is the ability for us to have sound sleep. Extremely important. You would notice that if you had a stressful night, that the following day becomes extremely difficult for you to recall even the most simplest of information, and it becomes a lot more, you have to put in a lot more effort to carry out certain daily tasks. And if you want to make an important presentation, the flow is missing and you feel very burdened and cumbersome in order to carry out your presentations or even give an examination for that matter. So it's very important for you to sleep. And why is sleep important? Because it's when you sleep that the brain calms down, it sorts out all the information pieces that you have received throughout the day, it throws away all the irrelevant pieces of information, raw data, it junks it, it retains what is likely to be useful for your life and stores it and organizes that in a neat filing cabinet which you can recall when you wake up through associative networked memory techniques. So, 7 important ways to learn. Moving from the known to unknown, using the network effect, using the association technique, repeat and recall, experimentation, learning, unlearning, relearning, and sleeping well. I hope you gained something from today's session. I enjoyed presenting this to you. May you be peaceful.